The film opens with the introduction of Lee Seong-gyu, a wealthy middle-aged man who works as a center manager at Busan's exclusive Baryun Bank. He also works as an investment consultant, frequently advising clients to make secure investments that could yield a sizable return. Lee has an estranged relationship with his children as a result of his busy work schedule and desire to earn money. Due to the same reason, he also has a strained relationship with his wife. One day, Lee decides to drive his young son Min-jun and his teenage daughter Ha-yin into their schools, but his wife shows up and asks him why he's dropping the kids off at school as she has canceled a meeting to do so. Lee replies that his meeting has been canceled and that he'll be able to head to the office after dropping the kids off at school, so she doesn't need to worry. Then they start driving toward the school. On the way, Ha-yin says that she smells a strange odor in the car. However, Lee ignores her and continues to drive. He then receives a call from his superior informing him that one of their branches will be closing. After some time, the phone rings once more. He asks Ha-yin to pick up her phone, but she responds that it's not her phone that is ringing. By following the sound, he eventually locates the phone, and thinking it to be his driver's phone, he picks it up. As Lee picks up the phone, the caller states that he has important news about Lee's car, but he immediately hangs up the phone, thinking it might be a scammer. Shortly after, Lee observes that the phone's wallpaper is a photo of his family. When he questions his daughter about the picture, she responds that it's on her mother's Facebook profile and anyone can download it from there. The phone rings again, and Lee picks it up. Then the caller warns that a pressure-sensitive bomb has been placed under his seat and will go off if he tries to get out of the car. However, Lee hangs up the phone after dismissing it as some sort of sick joke. Hard Hit is a movie about a VIP bank manager who is threatened by an anonymous caller saying there's a bomb in his car. What at first feels like a prank call quickly turns into an edge-of-your-seat thriller. The manager must simultaneously ensure the safety of his children, find enough money for ransom, and evade the police, all while trying to figure out what he did in his past to deserve this. How he does this? Well, let's find out. Soon, Lee approaches the gas station to refuel his car. As he's about to leave the vehicle, the phone rings again, and the caller asks if he can smell anything strange in there. Lee is alarmed upon hearing this because earlier, his daughter said the same thing. The caller continues by giving Lee's current location since he's been tracking him and claims that if Lee doesn't think the bomb is real, he can get out of the car. But in doing so, he and his kids will die in a matter of seconds. In the meantime, a man arrives and yells at Lee for not refueling his vehicle. However, since he's unable to leave his seat, he gives the man some money and requests that he fill his car for him. When Lee asks him what he wants, the caller replies that he wants Lee to transfer $3.5 million into an account and another $1 million in cash. When the kids are about to get out of the car in front of the school, Lee stops them. The kids don't understand why their father is keeping them from going to school. However, after being forced by the caller to tell the kids, Lee says that a crazy man is claiming that there's a bomb in the car. Then the caller threatens to remotely detonate the car if Lee doesn't cooperate or tries to call the police. After a while, one of Lee's coworkers calls him in a panic and reports that a bomb has also been placed under his seat and the caller is demanding money. Therefore, Lee makes his way to meet a coworker who is in the car with his wife. The wife is insisting that he allow her to go to her office. Meanwhile, a man approaches and yells at Lee because they're blocking the road. He apologizes to the man and tries to find a place to park. On the other hand, his coworker's wife is still adamant about going to work. After persuading her to stay in the car for a while, Lee drives off to park his car. All of a sudden, the woman gets out of the car and the bomb explodes, killing both her and her husband. The bomb blast has left them in a state of shock. The explosion causes a piece of metal to enter Min-jun's leg, which causes him to bleed out brutally. But the caller calls once more and demands payment. Witnessing his coworker die in front of him and his son bleeding at the moment, Lee agrees to give the money. He tells the caller that he'll go to the bank to get the money. However, the caller claims that there's no point in going to the bank because if he gets up from his seat, he will die like his coworker. Hearing this, Lee begs that he needs to take his son to the hospital first, but the caller says it doesn't matter to him. Then he doubles the ransom amount by saying that Lee now has to pay for his dead coworker's share as well. Hearing this, Lee claims to not have that much money in his account, but the caller seems to be aware of Lee's bank balances in each account. He then commands Lee to call her wife and bring the cash. He also directs Lee to speak with his VIP clients and lie to them to obtain the remaining money. Next, Lee calls a staff member and tells him to call all the VIP clients and convince them to invest right away in a new investment scheme with good interest rates. Even so, the amount received from customers is still insufficient to meet the caller's demands. Therefore, he personally calls a very important client and urges her to invest right away, claiming that there is a good scheme. But the client declines, stating that she must first speak with her husband. At the bomb site, the police are investigating the causes of the blast. By looking at the CCTV footage, they can identify Lee talking with his coworker in his car. They also notice that Lee knew there would be a blast beforehand. As directed by Lee, his wife visits the bank with a friend to make a withdrawal. A friend of his wife approaches and attempts to speak with him, but he dismisses her and drives off. Lee asks his wife to place the bag in front of a mailbox after she has withdrawn the money. However, she says that a tall man is approaching her and staring at her. Panicking, Lee tells his wife to leave the area immediately as he drives there, but when he gets there, the police have already arrested a man with the help of his wife. In the meantime, the caller claims Lee made a mistake by doing all of this, and whatever will happen as a result is his fault. Then, he detonates a bomb and begins to count. Lee and his children close their eyes, believing they're going to die, but then a bomb goes off in front of the supermarket where his wife is standing. Everything becomes hazy and silent for a while. Fortunately, after some time, Lee sighs with relief when his wife calls to let him know she's fine. Next, the caller again demands payment by increasing the amount. The police noticed Lee's car in front of the second explosion once more, so they sent out a search party to locate it. Meanwhile, Lee yells at his employee for not obtaining enough money. Nevertheless, he decides to transfer whatever money he has in the hopes that the caller will at least let go of his children. However, the caller says he won't cooperate and won't let them leave until he receives the full amount. In the meantime, Min-jun loses so much blood that he passes out. Now, Lee is approached by the police and asked to leave the car, but he ignores them and continues searching for the hospital for his son while he's being followed by the police and helicopters. Following him for a while, the police eventually surround him, giving him nowhere to run. Cornered from all sides, Lee is requested to step out of the car by the police. However, being forced by the caller, Lee claims that he has a bomb in the car and it will blow up if they attempt to do anything. To examine the bomb, a bomb squad is then called, and the chief officer gives the order to shoot Lee as soon as the kids leave the car. Meanwhile, a bomb squad officer requests that Lee take his son outside to take him to the hospital. However, he tells her that he can't let him go and displays his on-call phone to her. A while later, the police officer gives Lee some supplies for Min-jun and a walkie-talkie. Then he tries to record the bomber on the walkie-talkie by calling him, but no one speaks. After that, the caller texts him telling him to throw the walkie-talkie outside. So Lee has no choice but to comply. He then realizes that the bomber must be somewhere nearby watching him. Lee receives a call again and is asked to recall his actions from 6 years ago when he was working as a bank employee. Before he can say anything, the police jam the signal, cutting off the line. Meanwhile, when the bomb squads arrive to examine, they discover that the bomb is only in the front seats and not in the back ones, so they attempt to take the kids outside. Since Min-jun is in critical condition, he is taken to the hospital. However, after spotting the sniper from a distance and fearing that her father will be killed, Ha-yin refuses to get out of the car and rushes to the front seat. Next, the bomber, who is a guy named Jin-woo, acts as Lee's brother and proceeds to meet him. The police also permit him to go because they believe he might convince his brother to release the daughter. However, he grabs Lee and reminds him of his actions from 6 years ago. Lee speculates that he might be someone who invested money and lost it, then returned to exact revenge. Lee begs Jin-woo to release the daughter and promises that he will give him all the money. Hearing this, Jin-woo agrees and temporarily deactivates the bomb, enabling Ha-yin to leave the car. He then sets off a second time bomb, which has only 18 minutes left before it explodes, and leaves the place, taking Ha-yin with him. Meanwhile, his wife notices that the man in the news is not Lee's brother and immediately makes a call to the police to let them know. However, it's already too late because Jin-woo left with their daughter. On the other hand, Lee also drives off to arrange the money for Jin-woo. He calls his senior and begs for money with him, but his senior tells him he can't and says that the bank will file a fraud case against him as he has taken so much money by lying. Feeling hopeless, he calls her wife and asks her to transfer the money she withdrew earlier. In the meantime, Jinwoo calls Lee and asks him to come to a specific dock that reminds him of his actions from 6 years ago. Lee worked as an employee of Baryun Bank 6 years ago. The bank used dishonest marketing techniques to convince investors that buying shares of Zhangho Chemicals was risk-free. However, a volatile market caused plenty of investors to lose money, including Jinwoo's wife, Eun-yong. Lee destroyed the proof, and his superiors promoted him for covering up their fraudulent activities. But Eun's livelihood depended on the factory, and she had to put all of her hard-earned money into the shares. Therefore, she begged Lee in the parking lot for advice so that she could at least get back her initial money. However, Lee disregards her and leaves as he was blinded by his desire for money. In the next scene, Jinwoo's mom calls him and informs him that a large sum of money has been deposited in her account. Soon after, Lee arrives at the dock and discovers his daughter there, constrained in a vehicle. He apologizes to her, saying that he has made many mistakes in his life and is now paying for them. Meanwhile, Jinwoo arrives and sits in the front seat. Lee apologizes to him and asks him for one more chance to make things right. Jinwoo reveals that he lost everything the day his wife and unborn child died. Then, he asks that Lee drive the car to the water so that he won't blow up next to his daughter. Having no choice left, he drives the car into the water. Before the bomb can detonate, the car floats down the river and drowns for a while. But Lee manages to escape the explosion and is rescued by the police, who showed up at the scene just in time. He also tries to save Jinwoo's life, but is unsuccessful in doing so. The entire incident causes Lee's character to change. He decides to testify against his private bank and defend those who were taken advantage of by corporations. Even though he had destroyed all the evidence against the bank, his own testimony would still be admissible in court. As the movie comes to a close, Lee's senior calls to warn and threaten him, but Lee hangs up the phone since he's already made up his mind. The end. I hope you enjoyed the video. What was your favorite part? Do comment down below. Also make sure to hit that like button as it helps the channel tremendously. And if you haven't done already, consider subscribing. And if you want to continue with more recaps like this, check out this video now.